Welcome to Small Business, Big Network, the podcast for small business owners who want big results from their networking. I'm Liz Drury, a freelance voiceover artist who knows that if you're not working, then networking could help. Ben Carrick is a photographer specialising in headshot photography. He uses networking as a way to grow his business, and as you'll hear, he believes it's the one-to-one conversations that matter more than the 30-second business pitches. Thank you very much for joining me on the podcast, Ben.
It's a pleasure.
So, Ben, your LinkedIn profile describes you as being a headshot photographer, but I know you do much more than that. So tell me a bit about your background and all the kind of things you're involved in.
My background's quite varied, really. I started off as a photographer, I suppose, as a kid. I was always into photography generally. My mum and my aunties and family members had DSLRs, which had a lot of buttons and knobs, and I was very young and very intrigued by that. And I did A-levels in photography, but it was back in the old days of film. So we were actually in the darkroom developing film strips and printing out prints. And as soon as I graduated, I realised I didn't have darkroom access anymore, so that all just sort of fell by the wayside. And I moved to Liverpool and did my degree in music and music production at Paul McCartney's Liverpool Institute for Performing Arts. So that was interesting. And then opened music studios and worked in music production and synchronizing sound for TV broadcasts. So actually voiceover recording for mostly in advertising, before moving back to Leicester and coming across a band who had a requirement for someone to help them with shooting a video, and hired a number of Canon digital DSLR cameras that just blew me away. So I think as soon as I got a camera back in my hands and realised that this was actually doable now digitally, just started taking photographs for bands and started shooting weddings and events and anything I could get my hands on, really. So photographically, since that point, I've done what most local photographers do, I think, and shot just about everything from products to, weddings, events, portraits, landscapes, architectural stuff, things for a number of different web developers. So I think if you're working locally as a photographer, that's always, I think, the first step. Most people end up being sort of very general. All the photographers I know sort of go through that process, I think. And then, ended up a headshot specialist, which is where I am now.
And so what do you think brought you to that point? Why did you decide to concentrate on the headshots in particular?
I think it was a happy accident, really. I was working with a number of web developers who were just referring all sorts of stuff to me. And then that just naturally lent itself to shooting a lot of headshots for the Meet the Team page and the About Us page, and led me to pick up a couple of contracts for companies that were constantly recruiting and growing. And so I had a couple of monthly gigs where I was shooting a lot of headshots and started to just, I guess, sort of pay more attention. Often when people booked me for headshots, companies, contracts would say, well, this is what our current Meet the Team page looks like. And it would always be a disgrace. So started really being interested in sort of the quality. But from all of the different areas of photography that I was involved in at the time, I guess it just suited me the best. Making a connection with people seemed to be a skill that I picked up quite naturally. Although I'm quite nerdy, and I like being locked away in a studio with some lights and light meters and doing product-based stuff. I quite like that element. I was definitely able to capitalize on sort of soft skills, people skills, and I found that every single person that I ever shot would come into the studio and say, I hate having my picture taken. I feel awful about this. I'm really self-conscious. I always blink. And so people always feel really under the microscope and really uncomfortable. And in order to put those people at ease, you really need to be able to make a connection, and make people feel comfortable doing something that they're really uncomfortable with. And I guess I just seem to have a natural ability to do that and kind of coach the best images out of people.
Now, most people, well, certainly people in business, they need a headshot, don't they, in these days where you've got to have a picture on every social media profile and so on. So it's important that that's something really good, isn't it?
It's a funny old game, really, because since the lockdown, obviously, all business networking has all been online and it's all been Zooms, and every single person that I talk to sort of acknowledges the importance of having a really good headshot. But when you're in any Zoom room, you'll see a number of people who've turned their cameras off, and it's either just got their name written on the screen or a really awful picture taken on their telephone. So I think it's one of those things that everybody knows the value and knows that they should really be putting out a really sort of positive image of themselves online, and a headshot is a really strong way to do that. But I think nobody really wants to have their picture taken, so it's probably something everybody's putting off.
Probably so. But at the end of the day, people buy from people, don't they? They don't buy from a blank screen that's just got a name on it. So I think that's quite a useful feature of Zoom to be able to put a picture of yourself on there when you have turned your camera off. And I think it's better for the person who's presenting as well than rather be faced with a black screen with names on. They have at least got people's pictures if they're not actually having the camera live.
Yeah, you do see a lot of that, don't you? I mean, a lot of the networking events that I've attended have followed the same sort of structure where everybody does a pitch about their business. And mine's amazing because I look awful in a daily, in my regular daytime life, I look dreadful. But my headshot obviously is pretty good. So I'll say, this is what I look like, and I'll just turn my camera off and say, this is what I pretend to look like. Let me help you do the same thing. But then everybody will do their 30-second pitches, and then whoever's turn it is to do their 10-minute presentation is then immediately presented with a wall of cameras being switched off while people go and do their admin. It's probably quite demoralizing. So I think, yeah, you're right. At least bringing up a picture of yourself gives you some representation of the person as opposed to just this black screen with your name on.
Yeah, absolutely. So you and I actually met at an online networking event. So is networking something that you're using regularly to grow your business?
Yeah, it is at the minute. Although I've got other plans, larger plans, having been in lockdown and photography studios closed. So it's given me a lot of time to kind of scratch my head and think about marketing generally. Most of what I've been doing since the lockdown has been online networking and some social media activity. So I I find that there's a real sense of the language that people use when they're promoting their groups tends to be it's not like BNI. I see a lot of that. It's different to BNI for these reasons, but then every event I've been to that said it was not like BNI, apart from probably two that I'm members of, are very much like BNI. And I think it's a relatively proven structure, isn't it? But it is quite time consuming. So I tend to find myself kind of approaching the time of day. I know I've got one booked in. I think, I've got this BNI and it's going to take so long and I really don't want to go. Why have I got to spend 2 hours in this meeting? And then I'll attend and then I'll get 3 referrals from it or something, and it pays for itself. And every time I'm like, I swear I'll never do another BNI, and then immediately I get some business from it, and I'm like, well, this is what it's all about now, isn't it? This is the new world.
Yeah, that's right. And it's not just about the meeting itself, as you say. You've then got one-to-ones with people afterwards, so you've got to make sure you've got time in your diary, not just to do the meeting, but to do the follow-ups afterwards. Because otherwise, if you don't do the follow-ups, then you're wasting your time, aren't you?
Exactly. Well, this is why I like this. I've joined 2 other groups, and they use a platform called Hopin, which I'm not sure if you've come across.
I have, yes.
It's one-to-one conversations with people. It's much more like business speed networking, and I find that the people that I meet in those one-to-one scenarios, I think it's really good because you're sort of locked into a conversation with that one person, whether you like it or not. And so you have 3 minutes or 5 minutes or whatever to actually make a connection with the person and hear something about their business. And I've found that the people that I've met in those scenarios are front of mind when I see people on maybe in my Facebook feed saying, does anybody know a mortgage advisor? Does anybody know a virtual assistant? I need help with this or with that. And the 30-second pitches that I've heard tend to drift, very quickly into the mists of time. But the conversations that I've had, where it's been a one-to-one conversation with someone, those people, I think, stay in your memory. You remember them, and if you like them, you recommend them.
Yes. I think, is that the platform where you initially get 3 minutes, but if you want to, you can extend the time if you're having a really good conversation?
Yes, yeah. That's been a problem for me. A couple of times there's a particular chap who I would love to have a conversation with about a very specific topic. Now, he's given away some free consultation time. He's an expert in his field. I really rate him, and I booked in a 30-minute kind of free consultation with him, and it was really priceless. And then as soon as I finished chatting to him, a question, obviously, a really important question popped into my head, and I thought, I wish I'd asked him this. Now, I know he attends a couple of groups that use that platform, and so I have purposefully attended just with the intention of just, happenstance, just running into him. Oh, hey, fancy meeting you here. I did have this question for you. And the last 2 times I've attended, I've met 2 different people who are really interested in headshots and headshot business and just talking about photography, keen photographers. And they've said, I'll just extend, if you don't mind. You wouldn't want to be the person to say, well, actually, no, I'm finished. I think 3 minutes was enough of you. So I'm never going to, say no. So the last 2 times I've attended my 3-minute speed networking, I've ended up speaking to the same person for like 20 minutes, and sort of negates the point a little bit. But I mean, they were good conversations, but I've still got this question lingering for my Facebook experts. But
oh, fingers crossed you meet him again next time you go.
yeah, well, he's on my radar. I will catch up with him at some point. So yeah, he's not getting away.
Now, you alluded to this a little bit earlier on, but how much has your business been affected by the pandemic?
Well, do you know what? In the first lockdown, I had a huge studio. I was sharing a studio with a successful food photographer who's become quite a good friend, and that was great. So we had a really, really big space, and photography studios were officially closed, and then quite soon afterwards officially opened as long as we met certain guidelines.
Yeah.
Now, the guy I was sharing the studio with is very, very concerned about, because the lease was in his name, about meeting all of those guidelines and going above and beyond. And so working the studio became a little bit too restrictive for me to shoot headshots. So he shoots food. So
yeah.
I mean, he's locked in the room by himself. His artistic directors are going to dial in via Zoom and review the images. And it's just him and, a packet of Doritos on this occasion. Actually, last thing I was there and he was shooting. So, packets of crisps. They're no risk of contagion.
No.
But for me it was a bit of a problem, so I ended up having to leave that studio and start shooting from a local venue that would hire me their space on a short-term basis. And things were ticking over quite nicely, actually. I had more time on my hands, so I started to do more social media marketing, and I was getting more bookings than I would normally get, so I was quite pleased with the way things were working out. And then they closed us again, so I've literally just been reviewing the websites, looking at my marketing strategy, building ClickFunnels, and funnily enough, watching a lot of local photographers shooting my clients and posting it in their Facebook stories,
Really?
which is probably not the most sensible thing to do. I mean, there is, you always think you're not going to get caught doing a thing, don't you, I suppose, if you're just kind of pottering along and doing your business. But I wouldn't want a knock on the door from the council, because I think the fines are quite
hefty. Yeah.
I was in a conversation with somebody about it, and a local solicitor popped up and said it is £10,000. Someone had mentioned, I think it's only £200, but I think that's if you're attending a party or something, you personally could get a £200 fine. But I think if you're a business and you're breaking the rules, it's a pretty serious fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, for me, it's all been about taking an opportunity to sort of focus on the stuff that we all should be doing and don't do. So yeah, marketing, copy, targeted emails, that kind of thing.
Yeah. And of course, the networking you can keep going to and get people booked in for when you can eventually reopen.
Yeah, exactly, and that's been great actually. I've got a waiting list, and I've also had a number of people who I've previously shot who have I guess just boredom in lockdown completely changed their appearances and rebooked. So that's been good. I've had quite a few people, I guess, have I mean, myself included, put on quite a bit of lockdown weight. But I've had 2 clients message me and say that they've taken the opportunity to just hit the gym and are now looking quite a bit more slender. And you know, I suppose if you've done that, if you've achieved a real a landmark piece of weight loss and you feel a lot better about yourself, but your current headshot that's on LinkedIn and Facebook and everywhere that you go is maybe 20 pounds heavier, it's probably front of mind for as soon as the studio's open. So
well,
yeah,
but first of all, perhaps a haircut and then the headshot.
Oh yeah, well yeah, I've heard a lot of that. In fact, on the first lockdown, when we very first locked down, no one could have known it was going to go on for this long, obviously. So I thought I just put up a post and said I'll do a studio day because it'll be good fun. I realised I wasn't going to be able to shoot for a few weeks or however long it would go on for. And so I thought, well, what I'll do is when we reopen, I'll offer free headshots to anybody who lost their job as a result of the initial lockdown.
Yeah.
And it'd be nice for me just to get people in the studio again. So a lot of people were saying, kind of commenting and saying, oh, that's really good of you. That's so benevolent. That's such a nice thing to do. And I just thought, well, no, I just want to go in and take pictures of people. I like it.
Yeah.
So we sort of booked the day, nailed down a date for the end of lockdown. And then the week before, I think it just suddenly dawned on everybody. So there's no way they were going to come in and have their picture taken for at least a fortnight because nobody could get an appointment at the barber's.
Yeah, I've just got my appointment for after lockdown, so I'm looking forward to that.
Well, I've been doing my own, and I've got quite good at it. But it's not. It doesn't stand up to scrutiny. But on a webcam, a few people have asked whether I've been sneaking off to the barbers. So I think from about 3 or 4 feet away, I look quite well groomed at the moment.
Yeah, my husband's been doing mine, and like you say, on a webcam, it doesn't look too bad. But I'm sure the hairdresser will have something to say about it when she finally gets her hands on it.
Oh yeah. I think we're all going to be in trouble with our respective hairdressers. Yeah.
But what can you do? Needs must. So, what do you think that networking might look like a year from now?
I think that I was talking to someone who runs network groups about this just last week actually, and we both kind of feel that there will be a bit of a blend. So he's been saying to his members that I think when the last lockdown lifted, let's all start meeting again in person. And he'd found that among his membership, it was split pretty much 50-50, that people didn't really want to. They weren't ready. So, and that's been my experience, I think, of just talking a lot more sort of anecdotally than this guy kind of interviewing his membership base. But some people really can't wait to get back to in-person networking. And I think a lot of people have got like real anxieties about it and find that the lockdown has almost made it acceptable for them to not want to go to in-person networking. They feel almost validated and really don't want to go back to in-person networking. So I think we'll have to see a sort of a blend. I think people who are providing in-person networking groups prior to lockdown will have to have an online platform.
Yeah.
So locally, I'm based in Leicester, and there's a few groups that do events. So more like evening, nice restaurants or cocktails, and it's more of an event that you would get dressed up to.
Yeah.
I'd be quite keen to do that kind of activity. I think that would be great.
Yeah.
But before lockdown, I was in a group that would meet once a month, and they'd probably meet. I think the meeting was about 1 hour and 45 minutes. And it was very informal. It was really, really nice restaurant. We'd have lunch once a month and everyone would do their 10-second pitch while we were going around the table eating a buffet, and then someone would do a pitch afterwards, or a demonstration or something, and we'd bail. So it was one of the shorter meetings that I've attended and more informal meetings, but still driving into the city centre, parking, walking to the venue would be about an hour. Yeah. So you're looking at an hour either side plus an hour and 45 minutes. It's half a day, isn't it?
Yes, yeah.
And we can achieve the same thing in a 45-minute Zoom call. Yeah. So I think that people's eyes have been opened as to what can be achieved online. So I really think there'll have to be a blend. There's definitely going to be a market for it, and some people are going to require that. So obviously there'll be providers who are happy to jump in and fill that gap.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I'm looking forward to getting back to the evening meetings over a meal. I attend something called Wired Curry, which is once a month. So creative people sitting around having a curry and chatting about absolutely anything really. But it leads to collaborations, and I've missed that. But like you say, your sort of bog standard networking meeting is much better on Zoom, I think, because an hour meeting takes an hour. You haven't spent anything on petrol, you haven't harmed the environment at all, and it hasn't taken half your day up. So I think, like you, I think there'll be a bit of a blend going forwards.
Yeah, like you say, I think I think you're right. The networking meetings that are your sort of breakfast and lunch meetings, they are exactly that, aren't they? They're bog standard meetings. And like I said earlier, every event that I've been invited to under the banner of "It's Not Like BNI" has been very, very similar to BNI. And I think that the BNI meeting structure, I've been invited to a few as a guest, so I've attended quite a few over the last couple of months, and they're all saying in all of their email marketing and stuff, we're very eager to get back to in-person events. This is the pricing structure, but once we go back to in-person events, we have to hire the venue as well. So there's the narrative is very much, we are going to go back to in-person meetings. But I think those specific types of meetings really do lend themselves much better to online, just like you say, because of the logistics of travel, time away from the office, time off work, and they're very structured, and everybody's got a set time and a set goal, so that can work really well over Zoom. Whereas, like you say, that an evening event where you're not necessarily pitching your business or doing a 30-second presentation, you're just meeting people and hearing about their business and telling them about yours, and just chatting and making actual human connections. Yep. I think that's a better use of time if you're actually going to go out and do it in person. Yeah, definitely.
So just finally then, have you got any top tips for networking you'd like to share with us?
Well, I think I hear lots of people complaining about the Zoom sort of the 30-second pitches, the methods of doing a 30-second pitch and then reaching out and doing sales. But the people that I've referred business to recently and who have referred business to me are probably people where our conversations have been more about the fact that I'm moving house at the moment, or that their child is a similar age to mine, and what they've been doing at school. So I think that when I first started networking, when I first went self-employed and started my business, every networking event was an opportunity to kind of meet people and tell them what I did, and try to get the business cards and see if I could get some work. And there's a real sense of panic about attending an event like that. But now I think that just really trying to meet people on their level as people and make a connection. That person that you spoke to for half an hour about their dog will remember you so much more affectionately than they would the other photographer who told them about what they've done recently and what their pricing structure is and all of that kind of thing.
It's about relationship building, isn't it, at the end of the day?
Exactly, yeah. And with that in mind, I mean, you can't it's not always going to work out, and that if you meet somebody and you're not, that relationship isn't there, they're probably never going to refer to you, and you might not refer to them because you just might not get on that well. Yeah. And that's as much a part of the process as anything else. So it's more I think business socializing. I think we can do business networking on Zoom and business socializing in person. And if we look at it in that term, we're likely to make better relationships anyway.
Sounds perfect. So just the last thing then, how can people contact you if they'd like to get in touch?
Oh, so I'm easy to find, although I'm in a lot of trouble with my wife over this because she disagrees. But my company is the Headshot Company, and my URL is hyphenated, which some people love and some people hate. And in my household, it's polarized. So I think the Headshot Company is easier to read on the screen, but obviously harder to say in a podcast interview.
Yes, I think you're right.
Yeah, I'm the Headshot Company, but you have to hyphenate theheadshotcompany.com.
Well, we'll put your link in the show notes anyway, so people can just click on it and go straight there.
Fantastic. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ben. Thanks for listening to Small Business, Big Network. If you found this podcast useful, please do rate, review and subscribe. And don't forget to share it with the rest of your network too.